Hello everybody, my name is Lukáš Maletsky and together with my colleague Mikaela Staničková, we are from VHB Technical University of Ostrava, and today we would like to introduce you our Innovation Project Management course, stage number 3, which is Design. So let's go to have a look on it. So what does it mean, a project design? Well, when we would like to describe a project design, we need to know that this is a major step towards a successful project. It's a combination of strategic organization of all ideas, materials, and processes to achieve project goals or objectives, our outcomes and outputs. It's one of the very first responsibilities if we are in the role of project management. It's definitely one of the very important project stage in a project life cycle. And in the project design, we are developing design of the project, let's say by step approach in the view of a project triple constraints. It means we are focusing on the balance between scope, time, and costs. Also, when we focus on our project design, we generally plan overall of project description and surrounding. It means when we are developing project plans, we are completing all the responsibilities of completing the projects. We are formulating our project goals or objectives, our outcomes, and also describe when all the project settings will be reached in the following implementation phase. Very important in project design is also a time. It means a timeline. It means a time of the major deliverables, products or future that will be complete. And definitely in the project design, we also focus on the way of estimation, for example, of the project budget and outlines how to monitor and evaluate progress in the project. When we look deeply to project design, we can find some typical workflow which is divided to 9 steps of project design. First of all, we need to have a question, we need to have an idea, what is our vision? What kind of problems we are trying to solve with a project? Who and what are our resources? What will be the project goals? We've been talking about this on the previous slide. What will be also our project strategy, our contingency plan, evaluation plan, project budget, and project proposal. These steps are really very important in the formulating project design, but also very important is the knowledge and the view of project managers, because without project manager, there will be definitely no project design. When we are identifying and developing project design, we can also use many project internal documents that will help us to design a project. One of them is the scope of work. Scope of work is let's say, project documents that usually include some project features like formulation of project objectives, schedules and milestones we would like to reach in our project. Also formulate individual tasks in our project, all the deliverables. It means what we will need at the end of the projects. Some payment information. It means it's information about our costs and about our flows that we will pay actually in our project and to our team. Very important part of scope of work futures are also expected outcomes, and finally some technical issues as the terms, conditions, and all the requirements. When we are trying to design a project, we usually use several features as estimating project time and budget, formulating milestones, trying to schedule all the necessary terms and issues in the project. Of course, the process of budgeting is very necessary to look through about our resources and possibilities of resources. In every project, there is a need to pay attention to risks and their assessment, identification and assessment. And of course, the success of our project will not be possible without communication, monitoring, and controlling. So now we will have a look deeply to each feature of the stage of design. So first of all, we will talk about estimating project time and budget. Probably all of you can understand that all the projects should be or maybe must be on time. It means fulfill their time performance and also on budget, fulfill all the financial prerequisites and requirements. So it means we can also use some methods that we can use by planning the project time and budget. We can, for example, use a simple task cost, where it means that we will just break the project up to a small task and assign a cost. So it's a case of budget. When we are talking about a time, we, for example, can discuss the activity duration. So it means it's necessary to break the project into small tasks and assign to them all the activity durations. And finally, costs and schedules. It means once the activity cost project schedule have been established, when the project management has to link the estimates to be able to arrive at approximate cash flow. So the manager has to look at the activities that have been scheduled on the cost assigned to each activity to schedule the payments. So it's also very important beginning phase. When then another sub-stage or some future of project design is identification and definition of milestones. What does it mean, a project milestone? Well, project milestone usually shows an important achievement in the project. The milestone should represent a clear sequence of events that incrementally build up until our project is complete. So project milestones show us how is the project advancing. They usually, all the milestones, they usually have a 0 duration because they symbolize an achievement or some point of time in the project. So when we are talking about milestones, it's very narrow connection to project shadowing. So project shadowing, like a mechanism to communicate what tasks need to be done and which organizational resources will be allocated to complete those tasks in the time frame. And when we are when we try to schedule the project design, we can use many techniques, graphs and diagrams. Very, very famous and well-known are, for example, Gantt chart or line graphs, network diagrams, which can be based on, for example, critical path method, CPM, or program evaluation and review techniques, which are both of them are techniques of operational research, very close discipline to project management. When we move on to the part number 4, budgeting, so we are trying to budgetize our project, it means that we are talking about what will be a total amount of our financial resources and what will be allocated for our project to use. So this project budget is a generally combination of all the costs that we use for all activities, all the project tasks and reaching milestones that we would like to fulfill. Project budgeting is definitely very important process or some sub-stage of designing the project, because without budget, we definitely do have no idea about financial framework. So it's an essential part of project funding. Of course, we should talk about how well planned the budget is, because if it's well planned, then it provides for us cost control, and of course the money that are included to our budget has a definitely direct effect on our company financial viability. When we are talking about resources, so what can be a resource that we will use in designing stage of our project? Where it could be generally people or equipments, places, money, it means financial resources, materials, and anything else that we need to do all activities in our plan, in our designing project plan. So, and we are talking about availability of all these resources that can be used in our project, and also the conditions of their availability. So the first question when we are generally monitoring our resources and try to collect them together, if the question is if our resources are adequate and suitable, and the answer to this question is very, very difficult without a resource analysis. So one of the remarks in this design stage is to make resource analysis, that we generally analyze all the possible resources, all the adequacy, and some, let's say, support for particular strategies. And of course, it means for us defining some competitive advantages with these resources. And of course, when we have resources, necessary to identify some required competencies for effectively using these resources. And in a let's say, wide view, it's necessary by following resource analysis to prepare also the resource plan. The next part of designing the project is risk assessment. Well, risks are everywhere generally, and they could anytime, anywhere potentially impact our project timeline, our project performance, budget, goals, whatever. So it's necessary to, let's say, identify a risk and assess this risk and some, let's say, complex processes. And the risk assessment is one of these systematic processes of identifying all the hazards and evaluating any associated risks within a workplace, implementing reasonable control measures to remove them. And to identify risk, to, let's say, assess the risk, and also to avoid the risk, this is a question for complete project risk management as one of the discipline of project management that is necessary presenting in design stage, because using project risk management, we can identify, we can analyze the risk, and also as generally protect our project of these hazards on the way to meet our goals. And some remarks, hopefully helpful remarks for our risk identification. When or who can do it? Well, the risk identification, and finally when to start with project risk management as early as possible, and in iterative manner on a consistent frequency, for example, weekly or monthly, of course, depends on how long your project is. And of course, necessary to have a look on changes in our performance, and also on the way how our major milestones are reached. The very important part of making project design is a communication in our project management course. Well, communication, it's based on all the project success, because if we do not communicate and basically efficiently, if we have not communication network, communication metrics, well, what can we actually get without communication? So communication provides regular updates to notify the status of the project as well as its performance capacity, then everybody will know what's going on. So it's about basically about organization of our project activities, our project teams. And one of the prerequisites of communication is organizational breakdown structure, like a methodology of project management. It presents some hierarchy model describing the establishing organizational framework used for the project planning, for the resource management, for the time management, and also for generally preventing all the cost allocation, looking for all the revenues reporting, and so on and so on. So it's very necessary to have these organizational structure, to work with them, and also to identify some deep structures, deep subgroups in these organizational structures that we can also identify for our, let's say, project activities or work packages, and relate them to our organizational structure. So it means that OBS, or organizational breakdown structure, definitely help us to identify which employees or departments are responsible for completing specific tasks related to our project. And how to develop organizational breakdown structure, definitely as a hierarchy. So we can start to have a look on our, for example, company or our beneficiary structure, if we are structuralized to some project teams, some project departments, and or some other ways, and then specify appropriate structure, which is a functional, usually it's a functional structure that helps us to identify all the performance in a time for all the groups in our company, in just for us as users. And when we are designing organizational breakdown structure, the question is, what will be our project stakeholders? So what is the stakeholder surrounding? Usually, definitely, it's a project manager, project team members. It can be also project sponsors or executive sponsors. It can be also somebody who presents the position of business analyst or advisory boards, work packages leaders, or task leaders if we define OBS thanks to work breakdown structure very deeply. Of course, communication is not only based on the organizational structures, but also on the effective processes, because effective communication among project team members is important, is very important, because very easily we can just be in some way of miscommunication that can create a very hard feelings and might remain undetected for a long time, undermining team success. Well, how to communicate? We have here information about it's necessary to use open, transparent communication in all directions without fear. It must be also encouraged so that everybody team member feels comfortable. We can also use a way of project debates that, if they are of course useful, and all the time to necessary to work on improving communications that identify information needs and ways to best share information among them. The communication should be also predictable, and for these reasons we can also use a communication plan as one of the templates, for example, in the communication of design. Almost at the end of design stage, it's necessary to plan a monitoring and controlling activities and processes that we have planned to use in our project for identification of any deviations from our expected results in our continual work of the project. So this is very important to use, because without monitoring and controlling, we will miss something, what we can say, we can call lessons learned, and we do not identify what is wrong and where we have a problems with a project performance. In the monitoring and controlling processes, we usually focus on, for example, measuring planned performance, vice versa, actual performance. So, and in any time of a project realization, we can monitor planning values and also actual values. The planning control process is also based on ongoing assessment of the project. So it's not from time to time individually planned, but it's just an ongoing process. Also, it's necessary to focus on keeping accurate, timely information based on the project outputs and associated documentation. We need to provide information that support status updates, right? So there is a very short connection with communication. And of course, it's also based on forecasting the updates of the current costs and project schedules. And how to monitor and control in some technical you using some technical equipment where we can use many of monitoring and controlling techniques in our materials in our course. We describe only some of them. First of all, requirements traceability metrics, when we can, for example, use maps or traces or some other project that we generally maps the project requirements of our deliverables, and this makes the project task more visible. We can see it and we can also see the progress of their fulfilling, so it prevents us to be aware of some risks. Of course, another technique is to prepare or to make a control chart. It means monitor the project quality. Well, we generally recognize two basic forms of control chart. First of all is univariate control chart that display only one project characteristics. And then the second one is multivariate chart, which generally displays more than one project characteristics. And of course, very important is to realize some reviews and status meetings. It means deeply analyze problems, finding out why something happened. That can also highlight any issues that might happen later. Ladies and gentlemen, the designing of a plan is one of the most important phases, and this video was about how to do it. We wish you a good luck with all the materials, even theoretical, even practical, that will guide you to design your projects. Thank you for your attention.